womanist. She's a feminist activist and the founder of Africolors, which is a social enterprise startup that curates products made by African women. She also works to amplify the voices of women and to disrupt oppressive systems through her writing, storytelling, and activism. Welcome to the show, Zemdena.
Thank you. Yay. Thanks for having me.
Of course, anytime. Thank you so much. Apologies again for the delay. First, we just wanted to know, it's a really crazy time right now. It's so uncertain. Everyone is having to kind of look at themselves differently, I guess, and we're all just in such a strange place with the pandemic. And I just wanted to know how you were doing.
I always have difficulties responding to this question because honestly, I don't know how I'm doing. Sometimes I'm okay, and sometimes I get like really anxious, really mad, and sometimes it's really hard to pinpoint the reason as to why, because it's a lot, right? If it's just one thing, you could say this is the reason, but it's an accumulation of a lot of things that are going on. So it's a confusion. It's a really confusing time, and the emotions are equally confusing.
Definitely. I think that's a great way to sum it up. I think if you're able to describe how you're feeling, then I'd be like, wow, how do you know? Because I'm in that same boat. It's like, I don't think I can put it into words how it's been going. But also, Zemdena, you describe yourself as a Pan-Africanist womanist. Can you tell our listeners what you mean by this?
Yeah, sure. I mean, there are so many theories, in terms of defining what Pan-Africanism is, what womanism is, separately, right? It's not together. And there are so many books and so many knowledge produced by African women, particularly. And when I say African women, those living both on the continent and in the diaspora. So my definition draws a lot from, my readings, my surroundings, and my lived realities and where I am situated in my feminism, right?
Right.
So for me, Pan-Africanist, womanist is basically a reclaiming of, first of all, being able to name yourself, right? Because we've always been named, particularly, as an Ethiopian, if I tell you the meaning of my name, Zemdena means kinship. And it's a very unique name. I'm probably the only one with that name. But when I go to other African countries and when I see, how we've been misnamed or renamed, it's part of that colonial project. It's an extension of that project, right? So for me, it's a reclaiming. First of all, it's an intentional process to name where I am and where my feminism, both as an ideology and both as a practice, is placed. So first of all, it's naming where I am and what I understand and how I feel. And after that, what it means to me is, again, it's a resistance. It's a resistance to erasure. It's a resistance to always explaining yourself. Toni Morrison tells us that, the function of racism is to constantly, kind of define yourself, to say oh, I'm a human being. No, I'm a full human being. I'm a woman. I deserve life. It's a constant explanation of yourself. And what Pan-African womanism does is it basically centers narratives to the experiences of African women, and it brings back our realities to ourselves, because during the colonial process, and even now with neo-colonial projects globally, there's a deliberate, there's a what do I call it? There are processes that are constantly working to kind of silence our knowledge. The knowledge group used is constantly erased. So basically, it's a reclaiming. It's saying no. We understand what liberation is. We've been trying to liberate ourselves for centuries. Our mothers, our grandmothers do it. But also Pan-African feminism also understands the contribution of, our patriarchal cultures and how they influence day-to-day livelihoods.
Yeah.
So it's an intersectionality of sorts, like, if you like. I mean, it understands the external pressures that come from neo-colonial, anti-Black, patriarchal, heteronormative systems, but also recognition of, our internal traditional ways and lives and how they contribute to our, the different forms of injustices that we face and what to do about them. And also it's rooted in Ubuntu. It's rooted in a lot of in collectivism. It's not an individual process.
Yeah.
It's a recognition of holistic togetherness, if you like.
Amazing. Thank you so much for sharing that. So Zemdena, you've achieved so much, including, you volunteered with the African Union. You were the first female president of Addis Ababa University Students' Union, and you are an alumna of the prestigious Mandela Washington Fellowship. So I just wanted to know, why and how did you get involved with social justice work?
That's actually an interesting question. I mean, I would say by accident, but there are no accidents, right?
Yeah.
And when I say that, what I'm trying to say is that I never thought of like where this path would take me, right? It wasn't a conscious decision to be, part of this movement or to engage myself in different coalitions. I was just deeply concerned by things that were going around me, and I refused to be silenced. So I constantly spoke. So part of how I got to get involved in this process is by refusing to be silent, basically. And coming from a culture that tells you to be silent, to be quiet, to be less talkative. If you're a woman and if you're too loud, you're told to tone it down a little bit.
Yeah.
Right? And I was always like the voice of, the classroom. Whenever we had clashes with the teachers, I'm always like the one that's always getting in trouble, like always refusing to be silent in the face of injustices.
Incredible.
But also, but I also acknowledge that it's a process. My social justice activism was never perfect. It's not perfect now. It's a process of evolving and constantly, questioning myself and where I am in this process.
Definitely. That's such an honest answer as well. And I think it gives, I guess it inspires other people who want to get started in social justice work, who believe they have to be like this perfect person to do so. And just what you touched on at the end there, saying it is a process and you've got to be committed, but you just, as long as you know that you're working towards creating this space of making sure you're working towards social justice, but also the fact that you are constantly working to make sure you're not silenced. And I just wanted to know, as the founder of the social enterprise Africolors, was that part of your journey of making sure you didn't want to be silenced? And can you tell us a bit more about it?
Actually, that's not it. I mean, that was, I lived in Mali for 1 year.
Okay.
And I was just amazed by, the awesomeness of Malian women. Their, I don't want to romanticize, hard work or like hardship, but they're always committed to improving their lives. And they did it with so much beauty and so much culture. And just walking around in the streets of Bamako, like the culture, the beauty just inspired me. And as an Ethiopian, we're disconnected from, this Pan-African movement. There's a lot of colorism where I come from. Ethiopians believe that we're not, fully Africans. We're better than Africans. There's a lot of anti-Blackness that's going on in the community. So going to Mali, going to this West African countries was a reality check for me.
Okay.
And to kind of like find myself in the women of Mali, to see that our paths and our journeys as Africans, wherever we are, there are so many commonalities. Like I found some words, for example, that were similar to my local language in Mali. Okay. So I'm like, after all, we're the same people, and I don't want to erase, our uniqueness, our own, individual cultures, but there is also a commonality that has been erased by this colonial project, this divide and rule project that kind of disrupted our unity. So the reason my Pan-Africanism and the reason I started this, curating Made in Africa products was a resistance to, capitalism, a resistance to the culture we consume and how it's just a specific culture. Like it's just one culture that is defined as universal. So in that universality, I wanted to center, Africanism, the beauty and richness of Africa, and not just to prove to anyone. Toni Morrison again tells us to be careful in terms of the white gaze, the male gaze. So it's not just for those gays; it's for us.
For us,
so that's also really important for me.
Oh, amazing, yeah. And I completely can relate to the idea, because South Africa is quite isolationist in that sense. Like sometimes I feel like we're not so part of the Pan-African project. And as you said, like you felt this kinship when you went to Mali. And I think as a South African, I know that when my friends and I speak about it, we also talk about how we need to be more speak about the fact that it is an African country. We are part of Africa, and how do we make sure that we touch base with other countries within the continent? I think that's awesome that you came up with that. I just wanted to touch on the Pan-African Femi Forum you moderated earlier this week. So the discussion looked at interrogating Pan-African feminist advocacy in the times of COVID-19. Personally, how did you find the discussion? And, what would you say are the key takeaways or points that you would want to share with us and our listeners?
Right. First of all, I'm so grateful we pulled that up, because it hasn't been easy with the connection problems here in Ethiopia, and also the political instability, the internet shutdown, because this was a project of mine that came to me, a while back, but it took some time to actually see it happen. So I'm greatly honored that we were finally able to do it.
Yeah.
I mean, we talked about a lot of things, to be honest. But if I have to summarize it, I think one of the most important things we talked about, we began by honoring our anger, because the system we live in is designed towards our distraction, right? And there's no way that we're not going to be agitated by that. It's a normal reaction to injustices. It's a normal reaction to constantly being poked, constantly being killed, constantly being erased, and then also to be denied the anger is also another triggering factor, right?
100%.
Because a lot of other people, men are allowed to be angry, they're allowed to be aggressive. But when it comes to women, we're not only denied, our rightful places, but we're also denied when we resist and say, and when we try to reclaim our rightful, places, we're also denied. So that the denial is multiple, it's constant. Yes. So we asked our panelists, what are some of the things that makes them angry? Because obviously this work of Pan-African feminism, radical feminism is rooted in love. Yes. I wouldn't say it's rooted in anger, because the reason we're angry is because we love ourselves and people like us, right?
So much, yes.
We're not. I mean, if you ask me, I'm a very happy individual. I like happiness. I like good conversations. You know what I mean? Yeah. But these things get in the way. The systems of oppression, right? So that they make us angry. And a lot of my friends, a lot of my feminist friends, I know they're artists. They're people who like living life, but their dreams are shattered by the systems of oppression. So we basically started by honoring our anger. And one of the things that I really liked, that when we asked, what makes you angry, one of our panelists, a Kenyan feminist, Aisha, said, men make me angry. So I thought that was
that is true.
Patriarchy makes me for me, it's patriarchy, but it's also important to pinpoint within that patriarchy what makes you angry, right? Because sometimes it gets wrapped up in these big terms, and we get denied, our true feelings, because we're supposed to, water it down, sugarcoat it. So it was really interesting to have that genuine conversation.
Yeah. And
also the second thing, we talked about is, this constant extraction of feminist labor, feminist free labor, and this is also tied down to how, global systems of oppression work, particularly how capitalism is designed, right? You're supposed to give and give and give until you can no more. That's what our mothers did. That's what our grandmothers did until they collapsed. And there are no thank yous too. The sad part is you give and give and give, and what you give is not even appreciated.
Yeah,
so we
definitely.
talked about that, and some of the discussion that came with that is basically we don't owe anybody anything, and it's okay to rest when we need to rest. You know what I mean? So that was the highlight of that conversation, and the fact that feminists are full human beings who deserve all the good things in life.
Yeah.
So so we shouldn't participate in that self-righteous, like holier than, like, let me give myself until I collapse, let me Jesus like type of narrative. So we really debunk that common misconception.
Definitely.
And the other thing that came is also like, how do we navigate our works, like some of the how the gendered impact of COVID-19 has not been addressed by our government, right? So there was a lot of conversation in terms of kind of dissecting and unpacking what our governments are doing or not doing, and we closed off by demanding governments for more action, because this is within our right. We're only demanding
what is
for our rights, and we're not asking for anything extra. So so we closed off with our demands for our respective governments, because there are so many gendered oppressions that have been exposed as a result of COVID-19.
Definitely.
For example, in Ethiopia, there has been a rise in terms of child forced marriage.
Wow.
I actually call it child rape, because a child cannot consent to marriage.
Amen.
So because of the school closures as a result of COVID-19, students are staying at home, and since parents can't afford to, that's the normal justification given for this. It's wrong, but it's also tied to the poverty level that we have, and we're really, really going backwards, like decades of hard work of feminist women rights associations, activists, in terms of disrupting the systems. It's kind of been shattered by the emergence of this pandemic. So we kind of highlighted, the original similarities in terms of how COVID-19 is exacerbating, violence against women.
Yeah.
So that's more or less.
Yeah, that sounds so interesting, and I think it's also something that, like, as you mentioned, it was quite a difficult conversational forum to host, but it was so necessary. And I think it's going to constantly be something that should be revisited every month or maybe 2 months, just because, as you mentioned, these COVID-19 has exacerbated issues that have been so, pervasive within African societies, especially when it comes to oppressive systems against women. So I think that's definitely a really interesting discussion, and it's so great that they're being had. But I'd love to be involved in the next one, or actually be there, because I missed it. Like, I saw the poster, and then it was like, I think I was an hour afterwards. I was like, no, how did I miss this? But I think these kind of...
By the way,
yes,
it's okay, because we're going to share the videos. We haven't shared them yet.
Amazing.
We'll share the videos of that, and then we'll be continuing this conversation. This is a part one. So we will start with East Africa and then possibly expand. But definitely we'll have more conversation with the African feminists on similar topics.
Amazing, thank you. So we'll definitely share those videos on our platforms as well. So Zemdena, apart from your activist work, you're also a creative, as a writer and a dancer. We wanted to know, how have you been dealing with the pandemic and lockdown, and how has it affected you creatively?
Okay. So let me just explain. The dancing part is, I just like dancing. I'm not a dancer.
Hey, I'm a dancer too. It's all good. I think if it's a way to express yourself, you do it.
Yeah. I mean, obviously in my head, like, I'm a great dancer, world class. Like,
same. Oh, I'm there. I'm right there with you.
Maybe in a past life or in a future life, that's something I'll definitely pursue. But for now,
I love it.
I dance privately, and with people I feel comfortable with. But in terms of writing, yes, absolutely. And then like for me, art, I definitely more than an artist, I feel like I'm an art myself, and I think a lot of African women and binary folks, you know, like we're art. We're just a piece of art walking around, and
I love that.
I'm an art walking around.
Yeah, I know. I love it.
Yes. To say that to people now. I love it.
Yeah. So in terms of my writing, actually, COVID kind of has helped in a way, if I can be honest, because it has, you know, kind of made the emotions, like I said, the emotions are like so many. So for me, before I explode, I have to take them out. And one of my latest articles on self-care actually was supposed to be a thread on Twitter, and then and then it turned out to be like a piece. So like I think there are so many emotions right now, and even before that. So in terms of kind of having a quiet place, being by myself, you know, the social distancing, not meeting people, because it gives you time to really reflect in a way. But also in terms of work, it's been a lot, like the pressure hasn't dissipated, it hasn't decreased, it's just been multiplied. So kind of finding, you know, time to write, because like writing is an act of labor. Like I sweat when I write sometimes. You know?
Oh, I get you. It's true.
Yeah, like
real writing, right?
Yes.
Yeah, like, because and also sometimes when I read too, especially books that are by, you know, Black people, like, because they're so intense.
Yes.
Like I'm usually crying by myself, laughing by myself. Like I can physically, like, you know, I feel the emotions like physically, like. So it's an intense process. So in terms of like being at home, being quiet, you know, being away from the hustle, like, and everything, it helps in a way. But yeah, COVID also has opened up spaces, right? Like the fact that everything is kind of virtually means that we get to access these spaces. Like I can be at home watching Angela Davis on a Zoom teach in. You know, that's huge. It's really opened up spaces in a way, and things are becoming accessible. But also one of the things we discussed on our panel, on our fave forum, is also, you know, how this digital divide is exclusionary, because a lot of our people are left behind, you know, and actually I have a few projects that are trying to, you know, address that. Yeah. But of course I can't do it alone. It's a conversation. It's a huge conversation. We're leaving out a lot of our population behind, and it's worrisome. So yeah,
no, definitely. I think what you touched on as well, like we've been talking to quite a few creatives during this time, and they've also mentioned that just being able to take the space, take the step back from the hustle and bustle of everyday life, and to sit with the thoughts, because writing and different other art forms, it's a process, right? And you kind of have to be honest with your emotions and your feelings to be able to say something, right? And so I think that this time has provided us with that space. But just going back to the self-care piece you just mentioned, that was going to be my next question, because so how I actually know Zemdena is we're both part of a really important and necessary feminist African group on WhatsApp. And you shared this really great self-care piece, which I really fucks with, because so I'm just like newly on this journey of self-care. And you kind of touched on these concerns I had, because when I first looked at self-care, I was always like, oh, but it's people at the gym and it's yoga mats and I'm not twisting my body like that. Like, it's just so white. Like it didn't seem like it was for me. But, you know, when I read your piece, I was like, oh, you get it completely. And everything you said was just like hitting the nail on the head. So I just wanted to ask, what was the inspiration behind the piece? Because, you know, you said it was meant to be a Twitter thread. It then came out into this beautiful blog. And what was the main message you would want people to take away from it?
Yeah, I mean, the inspiration, it's a conversation I've been having with myself and with fellow feminist friends, and it's something I've been grappling with, right, for a long time. Like you said, like, it's such a hard conversation, by the way, this conversation of self-care. It's so much loaded too, right? But what inspired me to write that particular piece was a conversation that's for there was a conversation that featured, some of my favorite radical feminists. And then one of the questions they were asked on the Zoom conversation was, what are your thoughts on self-care? And a lot of them said a lot of things that resonated with me.
Yeah.
And a week later, I just woke up like super nervous, and I just started, typing series of threads, and that were just like in my head and that needed to be expressed, and I lost them. So I had to sit back again and write the whole thing, right?
Yeah.
But self-care, living in this painful world, right? In a world that's constantly trying to kill you, in a world that is trying to constantly saying you don't deserve to live, the existence of women, the existence of a girl, when being born a girl. In some cultures, there are ululations, and in some cultures, if it's a girl, people cry, they get disappointed.
Yeah.
Women are, told, they're kind of excluded and stigmatized for giving birth to a girl child. So our, our direct contact to this world is kind of seen as a crime.
Yeah.
Right from birth. And then it continues, right? It doesn't stop there. It continues, the constant violations to our bodies, as children, as adults, as teenagers. And then add to that capitalism, anti-blackness, homophobia, everything, religious bigotry. It just feels like we don't deserve life. It just feels like we don't, and then the saddest part is also for me that we add and contribute directly to this erasure and self-loathing and self-disregard. We become active participants, because we get to a point of hopelessness that we try to escape, and usually, oftentimes, our escape mechanisms are self-destructive, right? Be it, through excessive drinking. Sometimes, I told you, I like to dance, I like to, be active and things like that. But to do that, you have to be in this party scene, and you have to go out, the club culture and everything. But then again, you're constantly harming yourself, and I feel like I'm always running away from myself personally. That's how I felt.
Yeah.
And even the things I thought were geared towards self-care were actually self-damaging.
Wow.
So for me, I had to find ways, and feminism, radical feminism, is one way of reclaiming self-care.
Amazing.
Because you're saying to yourself that I deserve all the good things in life. It's a fight, right? You're fighting for the right thing. So for me, being a feminist is the first step to that process of self-care. And then the everyday things that we do, it doesn't have to be this romanticized, white culture infused thing, like you said, where you go to this because what white supremacy does is it co-opts everything, right?
Yes.
And then it makes it sound like it created it. So that's why we can't relate to it. That's why we're always on the sideline. That's why it's never for us. And sometimes the sad part is our cultures are taken and they're fashioned and styled and packaged and given to us. And where we get confused, we get stuck. We're like, how do I do that? And then there's a lot of financial issues involved too. Not everybody can afford to go to the gym. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
And also it's toxic. That culture is also toxic. It is fat phobic. It tells you that the way you look, the way you are, and everything is ugly. Is less deserving. So how do you navigate into that space when you're told that
Definitely.
It's not for you? So that's why we kind of so this piece kind of tries to articulate all of that.
Yeah.
And then in the final analysis, the message is basically it's in the little things that we do, just if you drink water, you know what I mean? Just first of all, figure out the things you like. And for me, if I feel pressure to do something, I don't do it.
Nice.
And when you're constantly also told to do something, and when you're told that your body does not belong to you, and when somebody else starts telling you what to do for your own self, you resist.
Yeah.
That's so it has to come from yourself. The initiative has to come, and then I feel like as feminists, we can help each other. Sometimes for me, reading gives me peace. It's self-care. Writing is self-care. And in the end, I talked about the bunna ceremony, the Ethiopian coffee ceremony. Like that's one of my favorite things. Like, you know what I mean? Like it's a communal, like, you know how in South Africa you have the bride, and you just like, like it's a communal. It's very nice, right? So like this bunna ceremony, this coffee ceremony is also like that. Actually, it's more than that. It's spiritual. I did not get deeply into that because that's like a whole book on its own and it needs research.
Write that.
But
yes, we want to know more about
it. Yeah, I mean, because there's a lot of ancestral, you know, like you know how you guys have the sangomas and like this deep African spiritual cultures. Like there's a lot of richness to it that I did not get into. But I just like the ceremony, even just to sit, even if I don't drink the coffee. It's so therapeutic, just women laughing with each other. You know what I mean? For me, that's self-care. And I miss that. Like, you know, one of the things that COVID-19 has disrupted is, you know, that communal thing we do for each other.
Definitely.
Like that sisterhood. Like right now, I'm thinking about you guys and like you guys call your show like it's a brunch and it's like sister. You know what I mean? Something like that.
Definitely.
Even this platform, like being able to talk about things, you know, the Budna ceremonies like that. It's just that there's coffee and you know popcorn.
Oh my god,
amazing! You had me at coffee.
I know. I was like, I am
when
there.
I heard you say coffee, I'm like, wait, what? Me and my sister are coffee addicts.
Yes, we actually are.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, we really are.
And Ethiopian beans are the best.
I know. I honestly love the Ethiopian beans.
Yeah. I mean, I can't drink coffee when I go to other places. That's
wow, because you're just like, I've had the best.
Yeah.
How can I drink this?
How can I go back?
That's amazing. Thank you so much for sharing that. But yeah, as you said, I think it is that sense of community and like there's so many, for me, even my self-care journey, it is even just confronting, as you mentioned, the fact that admitting like I have the right to actually want to care for myself, because as much as like you go through the whims of the world and you're just like, well, this is just how it is. It's like, it's really difficult and I've just got to fight every part of the way and never actually take the time to go and sit down and say, actually, what brings me joy and how can I prioritize that? So I think your piece really spoke to that. And thank you again for sharing. I also just wanted to know, so our show is really focused on like providing practical steps to our listeners, because at the end of the day, what we wanted this show to be was like part of the movement to achieve gender equality, to fight to bring feminist conversations into the mainstream. But what practical steps would you give to our listeners who want to be part of the feminist movement on the continent, or just get involved in social work being done, social justice work being done? Do you have any tips or steps to share?
Right. I mean, for me, I don't have this big grand, strategy. I mean, different things work for different people. But also I want to recognize the fact that for me, what worked best was like, caring deeply about the things around you. Like that's the most important thing. And not doing things, because for the fame or for the accolades or whatever. Like when I engaged myself in this movement, I didn't know I was going to be working with the UN at some point. That wasn't my intention. Like what motivated me and drove me to do this thing was in, being on the limelight. So don't focus on that. Just care about yourself enough to engage, because if we don't break these oppressive systems, they'll break us. So it starts from a place of caring and caring about yourself, but also when you center yourself, your community, right? Not just the individual self, because during my path, that was also one of the things I had to challenge when, I understood what intersectionality was, because I didn't understand class analysis coming from, a middle class.
Right. How
do we treat, the domestic workers in our lives? Like, I didn't understand that before. So basically, it also starts from reading. Reading really helps. And I encourage people to read, African writers, African women writers, and to share resources. Some of us that have, I'm known, like, I share a lot. Like I'm constantly sharing on social media. Like sometimes I feel like I overdo it a little, but it just comes from a place of, being denied, information for so long. And I don't want people to suffer like I did. So I want to like kind of open up that space. So just sharing resources, equipping yourself both intellectually and then, kind of practically organizing with your community, finding out who your community is. And, of course we're all tired, but being really committed, because either ways we're being killed. So it's better to fight than just, die.
Yeah,
So,
no, it's true. Thank you so much for that.
That was a great ending.
Yeah, I loved it. And I feel like those steps are really practical. And I think it will inspire people to engage, because that's what, like you said, I mean, what other option do we have to fight these oppressive systems if you don't come together and say we need to challenge it together? Because we can't, this idea of this top down, the people at the top, they'll deal with it, and then it'll help us. I'll wait. Yeah. But it's like, no, we all need to actually make movements within ourselves, challenge ourselves, and challenge the people around us, our families, our communities, to get involved as well.
And I just like what she said, where it's like, don't do it like, oh yeah, I'm gonna get famous and all that. And like when I started doing it, even with music, people are like, oh yeah, it'd be good, because like all of the big acts, they go into that, so it's fine. I was like, no, I'm not doing that to just move up a rank in my music or in my career. It's I really feel strong about it. And even like my sister, I'll read her books now, because she's like, read this, educate yourself, and know just a little bit more. So now it's more like in depth of myself. Like I want to do it.
Yeah, definitely.
Personally.
Exactly.
Yeah. And Zemdena, finally, just one last thing. It is Saturday, and throughout the show today, my sister and I have been like having these battles between the songs that we choose, that we turn up to, have a little dance. We wanted to know, what is that one go-to Saturday turn-up song that you always play, whether it's just, to pump yourself up for what you're about to do in the day, or just like, if you're about to go out, or sit down with your own thoughts. But if there's that one Saturday turn up go-to song, what is it?
I mean, since I haven't been going out and listening to music, it's really hard to say. But I really love South African house music.
Oh yes.
It's really dope. Mafizikolo, I don't know if I'm pronouncing it. Mafizikolo.
Mafikizolo.
Yeah, that song. Sorry.
No, it's fine.
There's this like one song like Kona.
I think it's like see Mafikizolo Kona.
Is it in Geke Balunga?
No, it's Kona.
Kona. Oh.
So Khona. Mafikizolo.
Yeah, something like
Yeah, no, that is
Kona,
yeah. Oh, we got it.
Oh, yes.
We're gonna play this for you, Zemdena.
Yes,
This is the one. I think she won.
Yeah, she slayed us both. You've won the battle. You got it. Thank you so much for speaking with us today, Zemdena, and thank you for sharing just so openly and honestly with us and our listeners as well. We're going to definitely, if you can share those videos with us from the forum, and then we can share that on our platform. But also, we look forward to hopefully speaking to you again, and maybe one day in the future when the pandemic's over, and we can just like all take part in, is it Boma ceremony?
Buna,
definitely. Yes, definitely.
Yes.
That would be incredible.
Yeah, definitely. Hopefully soon.
Yes. Oh, I'd love that. But again, thank you so much, Zemdena, and thank you for the
really
work you do. And just wishing you a restful weekend and a gentle week ahead.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me. I really appreciate it.
Thanks so much, Zemdena. We'll see you later. Bye.
All right. Thanks. Bye. Bye.
That was Zemdena Abebe. She is a Pan-Africanist womanist, a feminist activist, a writer, and the founder of the social enterprise Africolors. I'm so grateful to her for coming on the show and speaking to us. I think she dropped so many gems.
Yeah.
And she also just like shared so openly and honestly about her feminist journey, her Pan-Africanist womanist journey, and then those tips on self-care and how we can also make sure that we are challenging the oppressive systems that she says at the end of the day are out to just make us stay silent.
And it's like, and just start. Like you heard it, they are killing us, so might as well just then help yourself
to stop it. Exactly.
Your community,
I love it. And she's given us Akila's song to play out the show to, guys.
This song is gonna kill it.
It's Mafikizolo. It is. It's Mafikizolo. It's